South Africa is well established as the economic powerhouse of a continent that is poised to become a leading contributor to world economics. As one of the largest producers of gold and diamonds in the world, South Africa's culturally diverse citizens have a proud heritage of being an emerging first world nation that is an anomaly in Africa. Boasting an economy that sports a GDP comprised of a staggering 70% of service-based enterprises, with English as the official language of business. Primary amongst these is a burgeoning network of highly advanced medical services. These include modern and well-equipped hospitals supported by world-class doctors, nurses, and ancillary medical specialists providing first-world medical care to patients. A wide variety of patients from various economic backgrounds and with diverse medical pathologies benefit from a wide range of modern and cutting-edge medical services. All medical outlets, services and professional staff are regulated by a professional body who is mandated to ensure the highest quality treatment and care of patients. Clinical research remains an important element of healthcare, ensuring that medicine research and development, as well as treatment protocols, are actively investigated and maintained to remain at the cutting edge of medical progress.
Vx Pharma is a clinical trials business which is based on a site model and SMO model. So we have an assimilation of primary sites, one of which is located here at the Innovation Hub. The other is a phase 3 study site which is located at Life Children's Hospital. Basically what we do at our primary site is we conduct studies on behalf of drug companies. We contain the patients in an inpatient scenario, so basically a hospital ward. And we have all the facilities, the ancillary facilities that are required to execute these studies.
So I think the advantages are on a number of fronts. I think first is the geographic location, which is important from a seasonality perspective, which allows us to recruit patients during different seasons as opposed to Northern Hemisphere. I think the second advantage is our networks. The founders of the business have got very strong relationships and networks within the South African market. We have established a very strong relationship with a leading healthcare player in the country, and that gives us access to approximately 1 million patients seen annually. Obviously not all of them are appropriate for clinical trials, but at least the database is there from which we can recruit patients. Secondly, we have very strong ties into the public healthcare sector, where we have access to both tertiary and primary care patients. Two advantages to that is one is a much broader disease profile, and secondly we can give something back into the community in terms of providing treatment to those patients. We also have a relationship with one of the leading managed healthcare organisations in the country, currently manage a number of chronic disease patients on behalf of the large private medical schemes here. And through those relationships, we do have access to those patients, which are very strong relationships and quite unique.
This area is quite a major healthcare cluster, also a science research cluster. Within approximately 5 kilometers of the site here at the Innovation Hub, we have about 7 hospitals. Right next door here we have the Steve Biko Memorial Hospital, which is one of the largest public hospitals in South Africa. Then also we have relationships with the private healthcare hospitals such as Life. For example, Wilges is our emergency unit if ever there's a severe adverse drug reaction that presents itself. We have formal relationships with the university where we can recruit healthy volunteers from the student population, and there we utilize their clinical research unit to actually do the screening process for us.
So at a macro level, the regulatory environment here is very strong. I think the Medicines Control Council here tends to follow European and American regulatory frameworks, which has its upsides and its downsides, as I think we're all aware. I think that the quality control mechanisms that are in place from a public sector or government perspective are very strong, and we certainly seek to adhere to, or have to adhere to, each of those regulatory requirements. Internally within Vx Pharma, we have a very strong clinical team in terms of medical staff, support staff, and a lot of experience within the clinical trial space, spanning many decades additively. We clearly strive to achieve the highest levels of quality control, adhere to all the regulations, both GCP, Medicines Control Council, Pharmacy Council regulations, etc.
Pathology laboratory was established next to the clinical trials facility to streamline the processing and analyzing of samples in the laboratory. Samples were taken from the patients just a few seconds before we analyze it.
So having the lab located on site gives us both a price advantage, because we can control the price. So rather than giving away that work to private pathology laboratories, which typically would charge you a lot of money, there's a huge amount of pathology work that gets done, both at the screening phase and also during the monitoring phase. So the price is one of the major reasons. Another major reason is the logistics. So we literally, while we're screening and monitoring, we can move the bloods literally right next door and execute the test right there.
For clinical trials, for any testing of specimens, we want to establish a good quality control, and ISO accreditation is important for all pathology laboratories, including this one.
Each trial demands the introduction of a principal investigator who is specialised in that particular therapeutic area. And given the networks that we have throughout the country, we are able to bring in possibly either the top or close to the top specialists in each of those particular therapeutic areas as a principal investigator for each trial. I think one of our critical strengths, again, is the very strong clinical team who are employed full-time by ourselves to monitor and evaluate all the trials and the patients. It allows us to provide that continuity of care, right from the screening process through to the end of each particular trial. I think what is a particularly strong feature within our business is our systems, our IT systems, and this database that we have created around all the patients that come through on clinical trials. So all those patients that are screened are retained within the database, potentially for future engagement in ongoing trials or new trials.
It's highly specialised. You have highly trained people, so they effectively come with a very high price tag. So what we've done is, between our phase 3 site, Syzygy Research, and our inpatient site, which is the site that we're sitting at right now, we've managed to synergize a lot of those resources where they can work across both projects. But also we have the ability to contract staff, and here it's typically clinical staff that have GCP training, so that's good clinical practice training. And that can work on a locum basis. And with all the hospitals in the region, there's actually quite a large pool of nurses we can draw from. What's important in terms of our strategy for growth is that we're looking at developing large partnerships with a smaller network of potential clients than just pitching on a project-by-project feasibility basis. It's a very different kind of business from normal consumer businesses, because you really just can't cut corners. The standard of patient care has to be primary, and the quality of the results that you collect have to be top-notch. So we have to spend a lot on human capital. I think we have done that, but a lot of the clinical day-to-day work we can actually contract it. I think we have the right mixture of quality versus price in South Africa. Particularly with the exchange rate, which I believe is the most effective for our economy, which is around 10 Rand to the dollar. We are typically about 30% below the benchmark that the Indian drug research entities were benchmarking at. Yeah, look, I think it's very exciting. There are other multinationals that are involved in early phase research, but very few of them are located here in Gauteng, particularly within the regions of Pretoria and Johannesburg, which, as you know, is really becoming one metropolitan area. So I think with the density of the healthcare cluster, as well as the number of practitioners that are associated with the cluster and the patients that are served by that cluster, I think it's an incredible opportunity. Access to patients globally has become more and more difficult, and through our relationships with the primary care clinics, we have the ability to recruit mostly treatment-naive patients for chronic diseases, which is quite unique.
Vx Pharma is poised for recognition as being a leading contributor to medical research and diagnostics through the provision of professional cutting-edge technology backed by dedicated and highly professional staff. Their combined vision and dedication to patient care and favorable outcomes for patients is the hallmark of Vx Pharma.